My name is Nina Calder, 29 years old. At 6:47 a.m., my phone buzzed on the nightstand. The vibration rattled the glass of water beside it. I blinked twice, half asleep, and grabbed the phone. A single notification waited, Mom. The preview showed only one sentence, but it was enough to make my stomach tighten. Is greater than, we've changed the locks. Don't come back. For a few seconds I just stared. The words didn't look real. They were neat, polite, punctuated like a business note. No heart emoji, no love you, not even a period out of place. It read like a contract termination. Except the position being cut wasn't employee. It was daughter. I sat up slowly. My apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator. The sky outside my window was still gray. Dawn hadn't decided what kind of day it wanted to be. I unlocked the phone again, reread the message, and waited for a second one to follow. Nothing came. A part of me wasn't shocked. Something in me had known this was coming. Love between us had been on life support for years, kept alive by bills, favors, and the kind of thank yous that sounded more like receipts than affection. Before we dive into this story, tell us where in the world you're watching from and what time it is right now. Someone near you might be watching too. And don't forget to subscribe to support and appreciate the work we do on this channel. I walked to the kitchen and poured water into the coffee maker. The smell of cheap grounds filled the air. My hands trembled as I placed the mug down. Maybe I'd misread her tone. Maybe she'd meant temporary. Maybe there was context missing. But deep down, I knew exactly what she meant. It wasn't about locks. It was about control. She'd finally said what she'd always hinted at. I was useful, not loved. My worth to her existed in what I could pay for, not who I was. I scrolled through old messages. Every "thanks, honey" followed a money transfer. Every "you're such a blessing" arrived right after I'd fixed a crisis. I wanted to feel anger, but all I felt was empty. I opened my banking app. The same recurring transfer blinked back at me, $3,900 scheduled for the 10th. Mortgage payment for a house I didn't live in. A house where my name was never on the deed. My thumb hovered over cancel. My heart pounded. For years I'd sent that payment without thinking. It had become muscle memory, like breathing. But breathing for someone else can suffocate you. I hit cancel. A small pop-up appeared. Transfer canceled successfully. One word. Done. I set the phone down on the counter and stared at it. You'd think freedom would feel light. It didn't. It felt heavy, solid, like a door finally shutting behind me. My coffee went cold before I could drink it. I sat there, still in my pajamas, trying to piece together how we had ended up like this. When did family turn into an invoice? When did helping become owing? The memories came in flashes. Mom calling me after losing her job. Dad asking if I could help just until his back healed. Noah, my younger brother, texting about a small emergency. Each favor stacked quietly on top of the last until I couldn't see the ground anymore. I picked up my phone again. The screen lit up my face. I almost texted back, "Why, Mom?" But what answer would I get? She'd call me ungrateful, dramatic, selfish for even asking. That's how every question ended, with guilt. Instead, I locked the screen and slid the phone away. Outside, a siren wailed somewhere down the street. Life moved on, uncaring. I stood by the window and watched a man in a hoodie walk his dog, both unaware that a world had just ended upstairs. My reflection stared back at me in the glass. Eyes tired, mouth tight. The kind of face you get when you've been holding your breath for years. I whispered it out loud, just to hear it once in the air. She really did it. The sound of my own voice startled me. It made everything real. I walked to the table, grabbed my planner, and flipped it open. The next payment dates stared up at me. Utilities, credit card, loan, all mine. All real. All that was left of me after cutting them off. Then my phone vibrated again. My heart jumped. Maybe she'd changed her mind. Maybe she'd realized how cruel that text was. I grabbed it. But it wasn't Mom. It was the bank. Incoming account activity alert. For a moment, I froze. My hands went cold. The number on the notification made my chest tighten. Someone had just tried to access the joint account again. The message from the bank ended with, "Unrecognized device attempt. Action required." I stared at it, pulse racing. The locks might have changed at her house, but she was still trying to open something else, mine. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just about being shut out. It was about being stripped clean. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that message again. We've changed the locks. Don't come back. It repeated in my head like an alarm that wouldn't shut off. By morning, my phone showed another notification. Low balance alert. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd been the one keeping their lights on, and now I was the one close to empty. I brewed another pot of coffee and sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through old transactions. 4 years of temporary help. 4 years of lies disguised as family duty. The first one was from the day Mom lost her job. I remembered the call perfectly. Her voice had been calm, controlled. Just a rough patch, sweetheart. We'll manage. I was 24, just starting my first full-time job. I wanted to make her proud. So, I sent $800 that night. She said she'd pay me back after she found something new. She never did. A month later, she called again. Electric's due. I'll send it right back next paycheck. She didn't. Then Dad's back went out. He couldn't work. Mom said he needed physical therapy. I paid for that too. Every time, she'd say, "You're a blessing, Nina. You keep this family together." It was a perfect trap, compliments with a hook. Each thank you pulled me deeper. When Noah's car broke down, she called crying. "He needs to get to work, honey. He's trying so hard. Can you cover the repair? Just for now." Of course I said yes. Saying no felt like betrayal. One by one, the payments piled up. Rent, roof repair, groceries, insurance. By 27, I was covering the mortgage. Every month, $3,900. Never questioned, never paused. Sometimes I'd visit. The house looked perfect, fresh paint, manicured lawn, even a new TV in the living room. But the moment I walked through the door, it didn't feel like home. Mom would smile and say, "You work too much, sweetheart. Relax. You don't visit enough." And I'd stand there, realizing I was a guest in a place my money paid for. Once, I hinted at cutting back. "I've been thinking about saving up, maybe get a place of my own." Mom's tone shifted fast. "You can't do that right now. We're barely managing as it is. The family needs you. The family needs you." Those 4 words were the leash around my neck. After that, I stopped mentioning my plans. I stopped dreaming about moving. I just worked, paid bills, and convinced myself I was doing the right thing. But deep down, something started cracking. The first crack came one Friday night when my coworker invited me out for dinner. I checked my wallet, almost empty. Payday had come and gone, and I'd sent everything to Mom. I made up an excuse and stayed home. I sat in my dark kitchen, eating toast, realizing I'd spent thousands keeping another household alive while mine barely existed. It was guilt that kept me there, guilt and habit. The next morning, Mom called again. Her tone was bright, cheerful. "Honey, the internet bill came early. I'll send you the details." I looked at my reflection in the window as she spoke. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. She sounded tired, drained, like someone living a life that wasn't hers. I didn't say yes right away. I hesitated for maybe 3 seconds. That was all it took. Mom's tone sharpened. "What's wrong? You've always helped before." That was the rule. Hesitation equals betrayal. So I said yes again. But something in me shifted after that call. A small voice whispered, "You can't do this forever." That voice grew louder over the weeks that followed. Every new request from her hit harder. Every "thanks, sweetheart" sounded faker. By the time I turned 28, I realized I wasn't living my life anymore. I was just a wallet with a pulse. And still, I couldn't stop. Because if I did, I'd lose them. At least that's what I told myself. Then, one Sunday evening, while I was finishing laundry, my phone buzzed again. It was from Noah. "Is greater than, hey sis, can you send $400? Need new tires? I'll pay you back." I didn't even respond. I just stared at it. Minutes later, another text came in, this time from Mom. "Is greater than, honey, Noah said you're ignoring him. Don't be cruel. He's your brother." Cruel. That word hit me harder than I expected. I set the phone down and tried to ignore it. I washed dishes, folded clothes, tried to think about anything else. Then I heard the soft ping again, another message. This one was from an unknown number. "Is greater than, hi Nina, this is Carla from the bank. Could you confirm if you authorized a joint account with a Noah Calder?" I froze. My hands went cold. A joint account? I hadn't signed anything. I called the number immediately. Carla answered with a polite tone. "Hi, Miss Calder." "Yes, we just wanted to verify the details before finalizing the request. It lists you and your brother as co-owners. I felt the air leave my lungs. That's not my signature, I said. Oh, she replied, hesitating. Well, the paperwork was submitted online yesterday. Maybe check with your family? Check with my family. I didn't need to. I already knew. And that was the first moment I understood something ugly. They didn't just depend on me anymore, they were using me. I hung up the call, heart racing, staring at the wall. The phone buzzed again. Mom, is greater than, everything okay, sweetheart? You sound upset. I didn't reply. She sent another text right after. Is greater than, don't make this difficult, Nina. And that's when I realized, the locks on her house weren't the first thing she planned to change. I didn't talk to her after that call from the bank. For 2 whole days, I ignored every text, every call, every guilt-soaked voicemail. The silence felt strange, almost unreal. I'd spent years answering the second her name appeared on my screen. Now, my phone buzzed in the dark, and I let it ring. On the 3rd morning, I opened social media to distract myself. I should have known better. The first thing that popped up was her face. My mother, smiling, standing in front of the house. Beside her was my brother, Noah. His arm was around her shoulders. He held up a set of shiny silver keys like he'd just won the lottery. The caption read, "Is greater than, so proud of my son for taking over the family home. A new beginning." My throat went dry. The photo had been up for 7 hours. Dozens of comments flooded it, people I grew up with, relatives I hadn't seen in years. He's such a good man. You raised him right. Beautiful family. My name wasn't anywhere, not in the caption, not in the comments, not in the story of the family home. I scrolled through the likes until the screen blurred. All I could think about was the $3,900 that left my account every month. The payments that kept their lights on, the roof repair, the water heater, every cent I'd sent like clockwork. And now, in front of everyone, it was his house, his story, his victory. My chest burned. I couldn't cry. I couldn't even breathe. It felt like watching someone steal my life and get applause for it. I closed the app and stared at the wall. The apartment felt smaller somehow. My phone lit up again. Mom, I answered. Hi, sweetheart, she said, her voice smooth like nothing had happened. How are you? I saw the post, I said. A pause. Oh, that, isn't it lovely? Your brother's finally stepping up. Stepping up? My voice cracked. I've been paying for that house. She sighed, a soft sound full of practiced disappointment. Don't start this, Nina. It's not a competition. Family helps each other. I'm family too. You're overreacting, she said quickly. You always do this. Everything doesn't have to be about you. About me, I laughed, but it came out wrong, sharp, bitter. You opened a joint account with my name, and now he's the homeowner. But sure, it's not about me. Her tone changed. Watch your attitude, young lady. We've all sacrificed for this family. No, Mom, I said, my voice steady now. I sacrificed to this family. There was a long silence. Then she said the words that would haunt me. You should be grateful we trusted you with that responsibility. Grateful, as if paying for their lives was a privilege. I hung up before she could finish. The next day, I went to the bank in person. The manager confirmed everything. Your brother's name is now listed as secondary contact on the mortgage, he said, eyes glued to the screen. It was requested online last week, still processing. I asked for the form. My hands shook as I read the signature. It looked like mine, but it wasn't. I left the bank numb. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from Noah. Is greater than, hey, don't be mad. It's just easier this way. You don't even live here anymore. I stared at it for a long time. You don't even live here anymore. They were erasing me piece by piece. Over the next few days, I noticed small things: my name removed from the family group chat description, my calls going unanswered, relatives posting pictures with the happy homeowners. I didn't belong anywhere. Then, a few nights later, I went to visit the house. I told myself I just wanted to grab the box of books I'd left in the garage, but deep down, I needed to see it. To know if any of it was still real. The porch light was on. My key still worked in the gate. I walked through the yard quietly, the grass brushing against my jeans. Through the kitchen window, I saw them, Mom and Noah. Their voices carried through the thin glass. She's not family anymore, Mom said, her tone light, casual. like she was talking about a stranger. Noah laughed. She'll calm down. She always does. Doesn't matter, Mom replied. Once the paperwork clears, it's all settled. She can't undo it. I froze. My hands were shaking so badly the keys slipped from my grip. The sound was small, but loud enough. They both stopped talking. Mom's head turned toward the window. I didn't wait to see her face. I ran. My heart pounded as I reached the car, fumbling with the door handle. I could still hear her voice echoing in my head. She's not family anymore. I sat there in the driver's seat, breathing hard, trying not to scream. Then my phone buzzed. A new message from Mom. Is greater than, next time don't sneak around. You're not welcome here. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. And before I could even process it, another notification popped up in email. Subject line in bold. Notice of mortgage modification. It was from the bank. Pending approval. My name was gone. The email stared back at me like a wound I couldn't close. Notice of mortgage modification. Pending approval. Beneath it, my brother's name was listed as the primary contact. Mine was gone. I felt my throat tighten. I called the bank right away, but they were closed. The automated voice told me to call again during business hours. I hung up and threw the phone on the couch. For the first time, I realized how deep this went. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't confusion. They were cutting me out for good. I barely slept. I sat in the dark living room, the only light coming from the street lamp outside. I scrolled through 4 years of payments, my fingers shaking as I tallied them. Every dollar was proof of how blind I'd been. At sunrise, I finally fell asleep for an hour. When I woke, my phone had 15 missed calls and 5 new texts, all from Mom. The first said, "Call me." The second said, "Stop acting like this." The third said, "We just want peace." Peace? I almost laughed. Peace wasn't what they wanted. They wanted control. By the time I got to work, I was on autopilot. My boss asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. I wasn't. I couldn't focus on anything. My mind kept replaying her words. She's not family anymore. At lunch, I went back to the bank. The manager recognized me. He pulled up my account and frowned. "It looks like a full transfer request is in progress. Ownership is being reassigned." I clenched my jaw. "Can it be stopped?" He hesitated. "Technically, yes, but you'd have to prove fraud. And that can take months. Months." I thanked him and walked out before he could see the tears building in my eyes. That night, I sat in my car outside their house again. I told myself I was there to think, but really, I just needed to see it one more time. The lights were on. Laughter came from inside. It was muffled but clear. Through the living room window, I saw them all. Mom, Dad, Noah, even a few relatives. There were balloons tied to the chairs, a banner that read "New Beginnings." I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My phone buzzed in my lap. A text from Mom. "Is greater than don't sit outside. It's inappropriate. You're making people uncomfortable." My vision blurred. She knew I was there. Maybe she'd seen me from the window. Maybe she'd been watching. I didn't reply. I just drove home, tears blurring the road. When I got back to my apartment, the hallway lights flickered. I walked inside and shut the door, pressing my back against it like I needed to keep something out. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped my keys. Then I saw it, a new voicemail. From her. I pressed play. "Hi, sweetheart." Mom's voice began. Soft, sweet. "We didn't mean to upset you. You just need to accept that things are changing. Noah's handling everything now. It's easier this way. You don't have to worry anymore." The message ended with a sigh and a click. I stood there for a long time, listening to the quiet. Then I opened my banking app. The transfer was still gone. My name still missing. And yet, somehow, I felt calm. I clicked into my savings account, scrolled down, and hit cancel transfer on every recurring payment tied to their bills, utilities, property tax, internet, everything. When I finished, I whispered, "Done." It didn't feel freeing yet, just final. 10 minutes later, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Mom, then Noah, then Dad. I didn't answer. I left the phone on the counter and turned it face down. By midnight, the calls stopped. The silence was louder than anything. The next morning, I woke to a new message from her. The preview said only one thing: "You've made your choice." I didn't open it. Later that afternoon, a delivery van pulled up outside my apartment building. I watched from the window as a man in a gray uniform carried something to the door. He left it by the mat and drove off. I went downstairs and looked at the package. No sender name, just my address. Inside was a small box. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were my old house keys, every single one. On top of them, a note written in her familiar, perfect handwriting. Is greater than, you won't be needing these anymore. I stood there in the stairwell, staring at the keys. My chest felt hollow. Then as I turned the paper over, I saw something else written faintly on the back. A new address, and one chilling line underneath it. Is greater than, if you want your things back, come alone. I stared at the note for a long time. The handwriting was perfect, steady, cold. The address was a few miles out of town, somewhere near the old industrial park. My things, she said, as if my life could fit in a box. For hours I just sat there at the kitchen table, the keys spread out in front of me. They caught the light, glinting like small pieces of everything I'd lost. I should have thrown them away, but I couldn't. Not yet. The logical part of me said to ignore the note. Block her number, move on. But there was another part, the same one that used to believe every "we're proud of you" text that wanted to know what she still had of mine. Maybe photos, maybe letters, maybe closure. By evening, I grabbed my coat and drove out there. The sky was bruised purple, the kind of color that made everything look older than it was. The address led me to an abandoned warehouse lot. The gates were half open, creaking in the wind. I parked and killed the engine. The silence was instant, heavy. For a second, I thought maybe it was a joke. But then I saw her car, the blue sedan I'd helped her buy 3 years ago. Parked by the side entrance, I got out slowly. The gravel crunched under my shoes. Each step sounded louder than the last. The side door was unlocked. Of course it was. She wanted me to come in. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the faint smell of oil. In the middle of the room was a single table. On it sat a box small, taped shut, my name written across the top. "Mom?" I called. My voice echoed off the metal walls. No answer. I walked closer, each step echoing back at me. When I reached the table, I hesitated. The box looked ordinary. Brown cardboard, no markings. But something about it felt wrong. Too deliberate. I peeled back the tape. Inside were photos, childhood birthdays, holidays, graduation. Every memory I'd left behind. But they were all cut in half. Faces missing, arms torn away. I flipped through them, heart pounding. Then, at the bottom of the box, was an envelope. My name again. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Typed, not handwritten, is greater than, you always said we used you. Now you'll know what that really feels like. My breath caught. I looked around the warehouse. Empty. Or maybe it wasn't. Shadows shifted near the far wall. Mom? No reply. Just the sound of a car engine starting outside. I turned and ran toward the door, but by the time I reached it, headlights flashed, blinding me. Her car pulled out fast, tires spitting gravel, and disappeared down the road. She'd waited. She'd watched me walk in. I stood there alone, shaking, the letter still in my hand. The warehouse swallowed every sound but my breathing. I went back to the table. That's when I noticed something else inside the box. A small metal key. Not one of the old house keys. Different, newer. Attached was a tag. Just one word written in her handwriting. Soon. I stared at it, heart hammering. What was it for? Another house? A storage unit? A warning? I didn't take it home right away. I drove aimlessly for an hour, that box on the passenger seat like it was watching me. When I finally got back to my apartment, I left everything by the door. The photos, the letter, the key. I made coffee, sat on the couch, and tried to breathe. My phone buzzed. One new email, unknown sender, is greater than, hope you found what you were looking for. No name, no address, just those words. My stomach twisted. I checked the email. Details: it was sent from a new account, created that morning. No signature, no trace. I went to bed, but sleep didn't come. Every creak, every sound made me flinch. By dawn, I got up and opened the curtains. Across the street, a car was parked, blue, the same color as hers. I couldn't see who was inside. I waited an hour. 2. It didn't move. Finally, I I grabbed the metal key from the box and turned it over in my hand. The tag glinted in the morning light. Soon. I didn't know what it opened. A door, a warning, or something waiting for me to find. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Because when someone builds their life around using you, they don't stop when you walk away. They wait. And the key in my hand felt less like an answer, and more like an invitation. If this story touched you, subscribe for more real stories that stay with you. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every single one.